Hey all, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Julie and I primarily make content surrounding topics such as mental health, makeup, as well as music. Today's video is mental health related. It is part of my Let's Get Clinical series in which I educate you on various mental health conditions in regards to their symptoms, diagnostic requirements, prevalence rates, as well as treatment options. Most of my information comes from the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. However, I do pull from other resources I find as well. So let's get into it. For today's video, we are going to be discussing dependent personality disorder. Dependent personality disorder is characterized in the DSM as a cluster C personality disorder. Cluster C personality disorders pertain to personality disorders that have a theme of anxious or fearful thought patterns as well as behaviors. The diagnostic criteria, according to the DSM, for dependent personality disorder entails a pervasive and excessive need to be taken care of that leads to submissive as well as clinging behaviors and fears of separation, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts as indicated by 5 or more of the following. So there's 8 possible symptoms that will qualify you for this diagnosis, and you need to have 5 in order to be diagnosed out of the 8. Criterion 1 has to do with having difficulty making everyday decisions without an excessive amount of advice and reassurance from others. Next, we have this individual needs others to assume responsibility for most major areas of their life. Next up, we have that they have difficulty expressing disagreement with others because of fear of loss of support or approval from this individual. They specifically mention this doesn't include realistic fears of retribution. So when they realistically could lose someone over a disagreement, that is valid, and the major theme within this personality disorder is that the fears have to be excessive as well as unrealistic in order for the individual to qualify for the said diagnosis. Next up, we has difficulty initiating projects or doing things on their own due to a lack of self-confidence in judgment or abilities as opposed to a lack of motivation or energy. I think it's important they mention this because many of us struggle to start projects or be independent when we are struggling with other mental health conditions such as major depression as well as anxiety, whereas this is different because although there's a similar theme of struggling with one's self-confidence in decision making, it's specifically in regard to this personality disorder as opposed to for reasons due to a mood or anxiety disorder such as anxiety or depression. Next, we goes to excessive lengths to obtain nurturance and support from others to the point of volunteering to do things that are unpleasant. I made a note here that according to the DSM in regard to this criterion, that individuals with DPD are often unfortunately victims of verbal, physical, or even sexual abuse by their partners. If this is the individual they are depending on, they may feel stuck in an abusive relationship because they depend on this individual. And this is especially the case for people who are not financially independent. They feel like they have no choice but to put all their support and dependency into another individual who may not be healthy toward them. Criterion 6, we feels uncomfortable or helpless when alone because of exaggerated fears of being unable to care for themselves. Next, we urgently seeks another relationship as a source of care and support when a close relationship ends. So for an individual who has DPD, if they are engaging in a relationship with a romantic partner and it ends, they most likely will move into another one. This may also be the case, say they were depending on a family member and the family member either cut them off or passed away or can no longer support them. They may move forward into a romantic relationship that meets their extensive needs to be nurtured and entirely taken care of, where they're unfortunately lacking their own autonomy and independence. Finally, the last criterion is that this individual is unrealistically preoccupied with fears of being left to take care of themselves. So there is a lot of anxiety involved in having this mental health condition. In the associated features supporting diagnosis section for this specific condition, The DSM identifies common themes of pessimism as well as self-doubt for these individuals, as well as them often belittling their abilities and strengths, and they may even call themselves stupid. They tend to feel worthless and immensely struggle to take criticism, and they will take criticism deeply to heart and will even cite that criticism as evidence that they are worthless. Individuals with DPD tend to experience a lack of social relationships due to their intensive dependencies. They also have an increased risk of developing depressive anxiety as well as adjustment disorders. DPD can have comorbidities, meaning it can be co-occurring with other personality disorders, such as borderline personality disorder, avoidant personality disorder, as well as histrionic personality disorder. The DSM also mentions that individuals who experience chronic physical illness or separation anxiety disorder in their childhood or adolescence can be more at risk of developing this condition in young adulthood due to the development of this genetic predisposition or environmental, however you want to look at it, because of their experiences. Other risk factors for developing this condition include childhood trauma, overprotective or authoritarian parents. So this means parents, helicopter parents, right, that really cling to their children and control everything in their lives, as opposed to authoritarian parents who are very strict and lay down the law and may be controlling in a different way that is more unhealthy and even borderline abusive, depending. Individuals who endure a long-term abusive and dependent relationship in their childhood or adolescence are also more at risk of developing this condition in their adulthood. Moving forward into prevalence. In regard to gender, dependent personality disorder is more often diagnosed in females. However, some studies cite the possibility that men are stigmatized, of course, when opening up about their feelings and are supposed to be the dominant ones, and this is actually what leads them to not be open about their symptoms of dependency that very well may be there. Some studies, however, have reported similar prevalence rates between males and females in the past. According to the DSM, they don't really give much information on prevalence. However, I found a prevalence rate from Seligman and Reichenberg in 2007, according to an article written by Faith in 2009. 14% of individuals with personality disorders specifically have dependent personality disorder. And they also estimate that 2.5% of the general population could have this mental health condition as well. In order to make this diagnosis, I just want to add that any other medical or mental health conditions that can cause dependency-like symptoms must be ruled out before making this diagnosis. However, that is not to say that they cannot co-occur. Substance use disorders, for example, can definitely make someone dependent on their caregiver. Moving forward into treatment options for dependent personality disorder, it is fairly standard to treat. So since the basis of this mental health condition pertains to thought patterns related to anxiety and lack of independence and autonomy, as well as self-worth, CBT is definitely a great option to treat this condition. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. It specifically is going to address the cognitive distortions, whether that's black and white thinking, whatever type of maladaptive thinking pattern it is. CBT will address it and help the client to, over time, change their thought patterns, address their feelings, and hopefully modify their behaviors so that they are no longer dependent on someone else and can become more independent over time. Beyond that, we have IPT, which is interpersonal therapy, and this is not an evidence-based treatment. The evidence out there is sort of lacking in what is the best treatment for dependent personality disorder. However, there are many options out there for individuals with this condition to try. So IPT makes sense because it addresses interpersonal relationships, which are going to be a major stressor and a major difficulty for this population. We also have DBT, specifically in regard to emotion regulation as well as mindfulness. DBT is the cousin of CBT. It's dialectical behavioral therapy. It's wonderful. It is an evidence-based treatment for borderline personality disorder, but it can be helpful in treating other mental health conditions, especially personality disorders. We also have ACT, which stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, which can also address cognitive distortions, but motivates the client to achieve behavioral changes through commitment to making said changes. So they identify their values and they attempt to act in accordance to their values. Beyond this, supportive programs could be helpful for individuals with DPD, whether that be group or family therapy. However, this could backfire for this population if they struggle socially to not depend on other people in the group. So it really just is up to the individual on what treatment option is going to work, but it's important for me to educate you on there are a lot of options out there, luckily. Therapists specifically are advised to help clients with DPD to develop their autonomy as well as their self-efficacy so that they can become more independent. Therapists must also be aware that for this population, long-term psychotherapy may not be the best bet if it is with the same therapist, because these individuals tend to form anxious attachments. They also tend to exhibit transference in therapy, meaning where they're going to rely on their therapist or their therapist is going to remind them of someone they care about in their lives. And this is going to make their access to treatment difficult, as it will affect the therapeutic relationship. In regard to medication, DPD can be treated with medication sometimes. However, it's more so when there are co-occurring mood or anxiety disorders that could benefit from medication, as opposed to solely just the personality disorder, which truly needs to be changed with behavioral adaptations through CBT, etc. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel as well. Comment down below letting me know if you knew about this condition already, or if you have it or know anyone that has it or may have it. We can't diagnose, but we may suspect. You can follow me on my social medias as well. My Instagram is Julie_counseling, and my Twitter is JulieCounseling with no underscore. I also have a coaching Instagram, and it's Julie_coaching, so follow that as well. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye, guys.